I was 68 when it happened. That age where people assume you're soft. Grateful just to be included. Where you're expected to smile politely, keep your opinions to yourself, and not ruin the vibe. My name is Martha Caldwell, and I have one daughter, Emily. She was my whole world. After her father passed away from a heart attack when she was 7, I made a promise. I told her I'd give her the best life I could, even if it meant giving up my own. I worked as an English teacher at a public high school in Tennessee for 32 years. I graded essays late into the night, clipped coupons to stretch every dollar, and skipped vacations to stash money away for Emily's future. She never knew the full extent of what I sacrificed. That's the way I wanted it. Emily was a bright, headstrong girl. Artistic. Passionate. She loved painting and ballet, and always dreamed of living in a house with big windows and white curtains that danced in the breeze. She had a wild streak too, a broken engagement at 25, a move to LA, a quick return home when things fell apart. But I never judged her. I was always her soft landing. So when she got engaged to Mason, a marketing consultant from Charleston, I felt real hope. Maybe this time, it would stick. Maybe now she'd finally have that breezy, curtain-filled house. I was happy for her. Truly. And because I'd never had the chance to give her much more than my time, I quietly planned a surprise wedding gift. Over the years, between my savings, a modest inheritance from my sister, and the sale of the family farm, I had tucked away just over $250,000. I never told her. I wanted it to be a moment. A gesture to say, you were always worth everything. But in the end, she told me something very different, without saying a word. The morning of the wedding was a flurry of satin, perfume, and soft laughter. Emily had chosen a beautiful seaside inn in Charleston. The kind of place with ivy-covered railings and lemon water in glass pitchers on every table. I wore a navy blue silk gown with pearl buttons, simple, elegant. My late husband's favorite color on me. In the bridal suite, I took photos on my phone. Emily looked radiant, surrounded by bridesmaids in dusty rows. I snapped a picture of her laughing, the sunlight hitting her just right. I turned to send the photo to my sister in Vermont. She couldn't make it due to a surgery. But my phone was gone. I looked around, puzzled. Anyone see my phone? I asked. One of the bridesmaids, Claire, I think, handed me one from the counter. Here you go, Mama Caldwell. It must have slid under the makeup bag. I took it, frowning slightly. It looked like mine. Same case. Same little floral pop socket. But something felt off. I pressed the side button. No response. Probably just dead, she said quickly. And we're not supposed to be on our phones anyway, photographer's orders. I let out a soft laugh. Oh, all right. I just wanted to send a picture to my sister. Claire's smile tightened. Don't worry, the photos will be everywhere after today. We'll tag you in everything. I nodded, but something unsettled me. I couldn't place it. Hours passed. The ceremony was lovely. Sunlight filtered through the canopy. Emily and Mason exchanged vows under a flower arch, waves crashing gently behind them. I cried, of course I did. I remembered the little girl with scraped knees and tangled hair, now walking down the aisle in lace and heels. At the reception, guests danced, laughed, drank. I sat at a table near the back, sipping champagne, watching the joy from a distance. I wanted to share something too, a picture, a message, anything. So I tried the phone again. Still dead. Something snapped in me. I excused myself and slipped upstairs to the now empty bridal suite. My purse was still there. I opened it and pulled out the phone again. I removed the case. It wasn't even a real phone. Just a plastic shell. A prop. A dummy phone. I stood there frozen. My ears rang. I checked the vanity drawers on instinct. Buried beneath a box of tissues was my real phone, turned off, face down. I powered it on. 20 missed messages. From my sister, is everything okay? Why didn't you answer earlier? Can you send a pic of Emily? Did Emily delete my comment on Facebook? I opened my texts. And that's when I saw it. A thread. A mistake. Left open. A message from Emily to Mason. We gave her the fake one. She won't post anything weird now. No, my sweet baby girl, captions this time. I warned you she does that every event. Mason replied, LOL. Crisis averted. Last thing we need is her crying about your dead dad on Instagram. Another message, I love her, but she always makes things about her. Today is our day. I sat on the edge of the vanity bench. My hands shook. The room blurred. The flowers. The glittering tiaras. The framed schedule with calligraphy that read, Let Love Sparkle. They had deliberately taken my phone. Lied to me. Given me a fake. So I wouldn't embarrass them. So I wouldn't be a problem. I didn't say a word. I stood, straightened my dress, and returned to the party. They didn't even notice I was gone. Later that night, after the father-daughter dance, which Mason's uncle filled in for, I picked up my clutch and slipped away. No one saw me leave. I took a cab back to the inn, packed my suitcase, and sat on the bed. Inside my purse was the envelope. Heavy. The check was written and signed. I looked at it for a long time. Then I tore it in half. And then into quarters. And finally into dust. Quick question, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop a comment, I read every single one. While you're here, a like and subscribe would mean so much, it tells me you're with me. Let's continue to the story. Doesn't ache. The kind that starts to make space. I picked up the shredded pieces of the check from the night before, still sitting in the wastebasket. I didn't cry. I didn't regret it. I simply flushed them down the toilet like I was saying goodbye to a version of me that no longer needed to exist. I didn't leave a note. Didn't knock on Emily's sweet door. She probably wouldn't have answered anyway, not without checking if a camera was watching. I called a car and rode to the airport, staring out the window as Charleston disappeared behind me. I wasn't running away. I was walking toward something else, I just didn't know what it was yet. The flight home to Tennessee was quiet. No calls. No texts. My real phone sat on airplane mode in my lap, the screen dark. I wasn't ready to read any apologies that would be carefully curated for tone. I didn't want "Mom, you overreacting," or "it was just a joke," or "we didn't mean anything by it." Because I had meant something by everything I ever did for her. I meant it when I stayed up with her through chickenpox and heartbreak. I meant it when I canceled my trip to Ireland because she needed help with a down payment. I meant it when I told her I was proud of her, even when she was lost. But now I knew, she didn't mean it back. And maybe she never had. I arrived home that evening. The air smelled like honeysuckle and fresh cut grass. My porch light blinked on like it was welcoming me, or maybe just surprised I was back a day early. I unlocked the door, stepped into my little cottage, and took a deep breath. Home. It was quiet. It was real. And for the first time in years, it was entirely mine. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my ledger, the one where I kept my retirement goals, emergency funds, and long-term plans. The check was gone. But the money wasn't. The $250,000 was still there, sitting in the bank account I'd built slowly over the years like a bird building a nest, twig by twig. I stared at the number and asked myself, what do I want now? Not what Emily needed. Not what I could leave behind. What did I want? I turned on my laptop and started browsing real estate, not for her, not for them, but for me. That was the moment the shift happened. I had spent decades living for someone else's comfort, approval, and affection. I had clung to the idea that motherhood meant martyrdom. But now, I saw it differently. I could still be a mother. But not one who begged to be seen. 3 days passed before Emily finally called. I let it ring. Then ring again. Then ring a third time. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Hi, Mom, we're back from the honeymoon. Everything was beautiful. I noticed you left early? Mason said maybe your flight was moved. Anyway, I also didn't see your card on the gift table, maybe it got misplaced? There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, I missed you. Just a passive little nudge. A dig wrapped in a question. Because she noticed what she didn't get. Not what she gave me. I listened to the message twice. Then deleted it. She called again that night. Then Mason texted me, hey Martha, everything alright? We're just organizing the gifts. Let us know if something got lost. I didn't respond. I didn't need to explain myself to people who had orchestrated a scheme to shut me out, who laughed behind my back, stole my phone, and handed me a plastic shell like I was too senile to notice. They didn't lose a gift. They lost me. The next morning, I called my lawyer. A quiet, kind woman named Diane I'd worked with years ago when setting up my will. I need to make some changes, I told her. Are you sure? She asked. You had your daughter listed as the sole beneficiary for everything. I'm very sure. And so I made the first of many small, but powerful, changes. Later that week, I drove out to a lakefront retirement community I'd bookmarked online. Not one of those sterile, depressing places. This one had cottages with screened-in porches, art classes, a community garden, and a library with a fireplace. The woman showing me around was named Trina, and she had gentle hands and eyes that didn't skin over me like I was a problem to solve. You thinking of moving here with someone? She asked politely. No, I said. Just me. She smiled. Good for you. It felt strange, that sentence. Just me. Not lonely. Just free. Back home, I sat by the window that evening, a glass of sweet tea in hand, the spring air soft on my skin. My phone buzzed again. Emily. This time, the message read, Mom, I just want to know what's going on. If this is about the phone thing, we were just trying to make sure the day went smoothly. You know how you get sometimes. Please don't be mad. There it was again. You know how you get. Like I was some storm they had to protect themselves from. Like I was the embarrassment. The wild card. The outdated relic. I didn't reply. Instead, I typed a message. Then deleted it. Instead, I turned off the phone, leaned back in my chair, and watched the sun go down. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, not for anyone else's camera, not for approval, but just for me. I had given enough. Loved enough. Explained enough. Now, I was finally ready to live on my own terms. It didn't take long for curiosity to turn into entitlement. 2 days after Emily's last message, Mason called me directly, and left a voicemail with a tone I knew all too well. The same voice he used at dinners to explain things I already knew. The same smugness masked in charm. "Hi Martha, just wanted to touch base. We're trying to settle the house stuff and we were counting on your contribution. Emily said you mentioned a pretty big gift. Obviously no pressure, but if there was an issue, we'd love to work through it. Let's talk." Work through it? As if what happened could be resolved with a conversation and a forced apology over brunch. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the money. And suddenly, I could see everything with perfect clarity. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. It wasn't about a wedding mishap or a silly prank with a phone. This was the end result of years of slow erosion, of me making myself smaller so Emily could shine brighter. Of smiling when I felt hurt. Of forgiving quickly, because that's what moms do. But something had shifted. And this time, I wasn't stepping back. That evening, I called Diane, my lawyer, again. "I'd like to formally remove Emily as my power of attorney," I said. "And I want to reassign my medical directive. I'd also like to set up a charitable trust." There was a pause. Then a soft, approving tone. "All right, Martha. You ready to make some waves?" I smiled. "No. I'm ready to make choices." A week later, they showed up at my door. Emily and Mason. They didn't call first. Just knocked like they still had the right to do so. I opened it, slowly. I could tell Emily wasn't expecting to see me looking so calm, and so firm. She blinked. You didn't answer any of my messages." "I read them," I said. She waited for more. I gave her silence. Mason cleared his throat. "We wanted to talk in person. About the wedding. And, well, the gift." There it was. Straight to it. Emily stepped forward, trying the old familiarity. "Mom, we know things went weird that day. But that was the planner's idea, about phones and social media. Not mine." I raised an eyebrow. Was it also the planner's idea to text Mason about how I make things about myself? Or that I'm too emotional to be trusted at public events? Her mouth opened. Closed. Mason jumped in. "Look, maybe we didn't handle that perfectly. But you disappearing with no explanation? And now no wedding gift? You told Emily you were giving something big, and we're in escrow on the house. That money was part of our plan." There it was again. I stepped aside. "Come in, then." They walked in cautiously, like I'd built traps on the hardwood floor. I led them to the kitchen. Sat down across from them. Looked them both in the eyes. "Let me ask you something," I said calmly. "What's the last thing I gave you that didn't involve money?" Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when's the last time you thanked me for being anything other than a wallet? Or a witness? When's the last time you wanted me there because you loved me, not because I fit the photo?" She looked stung. "That's not fair." I tilted my head. "You replaced my phone with a plastic prop, Emily. Because you didn't want me to embarrass you. And you let me sit there, all night, like I was invisible." Mason leaned forward, clearly agitated. "Everyone has family drama. But punishing us by withholding money? It wasn't a punishment," I said, my voice sharper now. "It was a realization. You didn't forget the gift. You expected it. You saw me not as a person, but a transaction." Emily was now blinking hard, lips pressed tight. I stood up. Walked to the desk drawer. Pulled out a crisp white envelope. "This," I said, placing it on the table, "was going to be yours." They both stared. "But I'm keeping it. Not because I'm angry. Because I finally understand my value. And it's not something you get to cash in on anymore." Emily's voice cracked. "Mom, we're starting a life." "So did I interrupted. "And I did it without manipulating people who loved me." I walked them to the door. Mason opened his mouth again, but one look stopped him. As they stepped out, I added, "Oh, and I've changed my will. In case you were curious." Emily turned back, her face flushed. "Why are you doing this?" I gave a small, sad smile. "Because I spent 68 years giving. Now, I'd like to learn how to keep." That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my porch, and watched the stars scatter over the Tennessee sky. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. And as the night air wrapped around me, I realized something for the first time in years. I was done chasing love I already gave. Now, they would have to live with the silence they created. And I would finally learn to live with peace. Some people don't know how to apologize, only how to retaliate. 3 days after that final visit, I found out Emily had taken our private conflict and made it public. I was at the grocery store, small town, familiar faces, picking up butter and tomatoes when Cheryl Morris stopped me in the baking aisle. Cheryl and I had taught together for almost a decade. "I'm so sorry to hear what's going on, Martha," she said, with that hushed tone people use when pretending to care while fishing for gossip. I blinked. "What do you mean?" Cheryl bit her lip, hesitated. "Emily's post, on Facebook. You didn't see it?" I shook my head. She hesitated again. "Well, she didn't name you directly, but it was obvious." I felt a slow heat rise up my neck. I finished my shopping as quickly as I could and drove home, hands tight on the steering wheel. When I got inside, I turned on my phone, opened Facebook, and scrolled. There it was. A long, beautifully worded post from Emily. A photo of her and Mason in their wedding finery, sun-kissed, perfect. The caption read, "Weddings are about love, not money." When someone uses their gift as a weapon to hurt you on your happiest day, it says more about them than you. We choose to rise above bitterness and build our life with gratitude, even if some people didn't show up for us the way we hoped. #new beginnings, #grace over grudges. The comments were filled with sympathy. "You deserve better. So sorry your day was overshadowed. Some people can't handle not being the center of attention." I stared at the screen. Not only had she tried to erase me on her wedding day, now she was rewriting the story entirely. Painting herself as the victim. Painting me as the bitter old mother who ruined the fairy tale. But the real story? She didn't like the ending I chose. I spent the rest of the afternoon watching the comments pile up. Friends of hers, some of mine, reacting with hearts, hugs, and long-winded, uplifting messages. Not one person asked why I had left early. Not one person asked what actually happened. That night, I received a call from Diane, my lawyer. "I saw Emily's post," she said simply. "Do you want to respond publicly?" I let out a bitter laugh. I've spent a lifetime responding. "No. I don't want to react. I want to act." "Good," she said. "Because you still have power, Martha. You just haven't used it yet." The next morning, I walked down to the community bank where I kept my savings and retirement accounts. I opened a private trust, a personal fund, with clear terms, to be used for charitable giving, legacy planning, and emergency resources for older women in situations like mine, those made to feel invisible, small, and disposable by the very families they built their lives around. I named it the Quiet Backbone Fund. I put $100,000 into it right there. When the banker asked if I'd like to name a successor for the trust, I said, "Not at the moment. That can wait. I'm not finished yet." That evening, I finally posted something myself. Just a few lines. Some stories get told louder than others. But silence can be powerful, too. I'm not ashamed of protecting my peace. I gave what I could for decades. Now, I've decided to give differently, to those who won't mistake love for obligation. No hashtags. No names. Just truth. The next day, I got a knock at the door. It was Cheryl again, but this time she looked flustered. I wanted to say, "I read your post," she said softly. "And I think I get it now. I've known you for years, Martha. You're not vindictive." I nodded, offering her a cup of tea. She looked around my cozy kitchen and added, "It's brave, what you're doing. Most of us wouldn't know how to say no after all those years." I sipped my tea and looked out the window. It's hard the first time. Then it gets easier. And it did. Emily messaged me again later that week. "I didn't mean for people to attack you. I was just venting. You're making this into something huge. Just tell me, are you really cutting me off? For a phone prank? And finally, are you punishing me for not being the daughter you wanted?" That one stung. But I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because I'd already said everything that needed saying when I walked away from her table with my head held high. She wanted me to feel guilty. To question myself. To play the role of the regretful, overreacting mother who would eventually crawl back. But not this time. That weekend, I attended an event at the Lakeside community. I was preparing to move into a small gathering of women, many of them widowed or retired, most of them with stories they never told out loud. One woman, Darlene, shared how her kids moved her into a condo without asking. Another, Joni, told us her daughter started avoiding her calls after she stopped paying for the grandkids' piano lessons. And I thought, we've all been tricked into believing love means silence. But silence, when chosen, can be a declaration. And mine was saying, I matter, too. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of regret, no, That emotion had left me the moment I saw the smirk on my daughter's face when she held up my real phone like a trophy. I stayed up because my heart, my mind, and every fiber of my being was working through the weight of a lifetime of motherhood, and the moment I realized, it had all changed. By sunrise, the house was quiet, except for the faint clink of glassware being cleaned in the catering tent outside. Emily and Mason were still passed out in their luxury honeymoon suite. I walked softly back into the bridal prep room, where my purse had been left untouched on the windowsill. The envelope was still inside. The crisp check, and signed. I paused, looking at the zeros again. $250,000. Years of teaching. Saving. Going without. No vacations, no luxuries. Just safety for Emily. Just hope. That money wasn't just cash, it was my life's work, transformed into a promise I had planned to give her with trembling hands and a proud heart. But she didn't want me. Not as I was. She wanted a mother muted. Edited. Silenced. A pretty shadow in her perfect day. They'd tried to erase me with a fake phone, as if my love, my presence, my voice, were embarrassing. So I left the room as quietly as I came. But this time, with my phone, my purse, and my voice intact. I didn't leave a note. Not a goodbye. Let them search, let them wonder. The car service picked me up early, and I was home before they even finished their brunch reception. A day passed. Then another. No call. No message. No knock at the door. Until the third day. That's when I got a text from Mason. Hey Martha. Just wondering if there was an issue with the gift? We didn't see it in the card box, haha. No pressure. Of course. Just thought we'd check in. Smiling face with smiling eyes, a smiley face. I stared at that text like it was a knife dressed in confetti. Emily didn't even have the decency to ask herself. I typed back slowly. There was no issue. I just took the hint you both gave me at the wedding. You wanted me silent, invisible. So I left, silently, and took the gift with me. I won't fund my own erasure. No emojis. No smile. Just truth. Minutes later, the phone rang. Emily. I let it go to voicemail. But I listened. Her voice was tight. Forced. Mom? That text to Mason, what are you even talking about? That wasn't meant to hurt you. It was just a little joke, like, you're always on your phone, and we thought it'd be fun to have you present, you know? Like, not distracted. You're seriously going to take this out on us financially? Her voice cracked a bit. You know how hard we've worked. You know we can't buy the house without that check. There it was. The real pain. The house. Not me. Not what they did. The house. I didn't respond. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee, opened the drawer where the check still sat, and ran my fingers over it. Not to shred it. Not to send it. But to remind myself that this money was mine. That my worth didn't come from buying anyone's love or approval. A week later, I went to a realtor and found a small cottage near a lake I used to visit with Emily as a child. Peaceful. Simple. Mine. And for the first time in decades, I felt free. Emily texted again a few days later. So, that's it? You're punishing me over one prank? After all I've done? Wow. I guess I know where I stand now. I didn't reply. But if I had, I might have said, no, sweetheart. You know where I stand now. And it's not behind you, holding my breath while you humiliate me with a smile. It's not beside you, funding your filtered life. I stand alone. Strong. Loud. Visible. And finally, respected, by me. Some would call it revenge. I call it reclaiming my dignity. And to any mother listening who's ever felt unseen, unheard, or uninvited into her own child's life, let this be your reminder: you don't have to fund your own heartbreak. You don't have to stay quiet. You don't have to smile while they erase you. Take the hint. Take your power. And if needed, take the money back home with you, too.